Hello, this is Cristi, and welcome to a new tutorial for Xara Designer Pro X. As I promised, I am taking all the tools one by one and presenting to you how they work. And today we are looking at the fill tool in Xara Designer Pro X. So there are a few functionalities that are associated with the fill tool, and you will see the different modes of fills you can apply and the tweaks you can make. But also I'm going to dive deeper into the way the fill tool works with bitmaps, and I'm going to show you a little tip that you need to realize when working with the fill tool in Xara, and it's going to be quite handy, and you'll see the different ways it is very flexible. So let's start. And the fill tool is on the toolbar on the left there. You can press the key shortcut G. So that's the one down there. And as soon as you activate that, flat fill is the default, and you will see the drop down selection at the top here. This is the mode, the fill mode. So in order to show you examples of what's happening, I'm going to draw a rectangle here on the scene. And it is by default black. Depends what you have used previously in the session. Xara remembers the settings you've used on the last tool, such as the color, the outline, so that you can work faster by applying them. So in this case, I've just started Xara, so I haven't used anything. So the default is black fill. This is a flat fill. So on this object, I can change the color just by clicking on the colors at the bottom here. So if I want to change it to green, I change it to green, click on the color, and it changes to what is on the bottom color strip. Or if I want to select a more accurate color, click on the color selection here, and you can just drag around with a precision to choose the right color you want. So this is equivalent to a flat fill. So if I go to the fill tool now with my object selected, you see it's flat fill. So this is what it does here. It's a flat fill. That's the default. Now, if I drag onto the object with the fill tool, it transforms this into a linear fill. This would be the same as selecting from the drop down here, going to the linear fill, and you now have the option to choose two colors for your object, which is a gradient. It creates a gradient. So this is very nice for us to pause here and look at the options we have, because as you can see here, I have some new options that I can play with on this linear fill type. So you can choose simple or repeating. So that will create like a fill pattern. You can, with your gradient, and also you can choose the type of transition from one color to the other. So you can have a rainbow, so that's going to cycle through the colors, or you can have the fade or an alt rainbow, which is a different, an inverted rainbow. So what I want to show you is if I go back to a simple fill and I'm going to go to a fade, so I just have the two colors from top left to bottom right, then you see these 2 points at the ends of this line. This line shows the direction of my gradient. So if you want to change the color, the starting color or the finishing color, you just click on the dot, you select it now, it's red, and then on the color bar, choose the other color. So same with this end color here, I can click on that and select, I don't know, red. So as you can see now, the two colors, you can change them individually with these selected dots. Of course, you can move your fill around, you can drag it again to define a new starting point, and or move it around so you can see the way it changes. Now the engine in Xara is very performant, so editing this is very fast, and even on older machines you can actually do this. Now let me choose a more contrasting color here. I'm going to just choose black, and I'm going to have white here. So I want to show you what this arrow up here does. So if you're not happy with the ratio of light to darkness or starting to ending color, so you want to have a little more sort of black towards the end, or a little more white towards the starting point here instead of black and so on, you can play with this profile here. So as you can see, my arrow is almost in the corner. My starting point on the bottom top left is also almost in the corner. So this is kind of equal distribution of the spectrum of color from start to end. But if you click on this profile and you tweak these options, there is a curve here that's, you know, it's linear to start with, but you can define like a curve. So that's how you can vary. So as you can see, look, now I've changed the curve, so it's more white for most of it and then just a bit of black at the end. If I change this curve the other way, there's just a little bit of white and then it goes faster into black. Of course, you're not limited to these options that you have drawn here. You can also change these options manually to bend the curve any way you like. So if I want to have mostly black but just a little white there, I can push this all the way to the edge, and then this other selection dictates how sudden or how abrupt the separation between the colors is. So if I put it all the way to -1, you will see the transition between the colors is basically 1 pixel, or it's 1 degree. It's white and then immediately black. But as I move it up, it fades and introduces multiple levels of gray or whatever intermediate color you have. If I move all the way to the other edge of the spectrum, you will see the central color, the gray, the medium color is in the middle, and then the edges are pretty much the extreme colors I have. I can of course still move these around, you know, I can move the ends of my gradient and just play with this, you know, put it on the middle and then play with the curve and, you know, kind of leave it all. So this is how you can tweak the curve of your, you know, your gradient. So that is a good, nice, flexible thing. You can do some kind of nice shadows if you want with it, and so on. And you will see this profile selection, this profile dialog on other tools in Xara, such as the transparency tool or the drop shadow tool, where you can control how strong the shadow is and how the transition happens between the shadow and the background and all of that. So this is similar to that. So let's move on now. So I've shown you a gradient with 2 colors, and I've shown you how you can change the color by clicking on the ends of this arrow and then just choosing the color. Now let's have a look at the other one. So I'm going to close this profile. So the next one is circular. This basically, it's the same, you know, you have 2 colors, a starting and an ending color, but it's circular. So this is like a circular gradient in you would see in Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator. So you can move the center, of course, and you can make the radius larger or smaller. And the same way, you click on the ends of the arrow and you can change the color, just like with the other one. So there you have it. This is the circular fill. Nothing special here. Let's move to another one. The elliptical fill actually is the same as the circular one, but it gives you 2 points to change the radius. One for horizontal and one for vertical. So you can actually make it look elliptical, squashed. And you know, like you see here. Again, each point allows you to change the color. So in this case, if I click on the extremities and I choose maybe green, it changes it all around. So it changes it on both of these arrow tips. The center is of course changeable by itself. So you can still control the radius, but now you can control it separately for 2 axes. Okay, so let's move on from elliptical to conical. Again, you know, I'm debating myself here whether I should show you all of these, but anyway. So this is another type of gradient. It's conical, very similar to the Photoshop one. We have a starting point and then radially it goes around, you know, and it creates sort of a cone, like you were looking at a cone from the top. Okay, so you can of course move the center, and you can create some kind of nice light effects with this, I guess. The profile still works, so you can still tweak sort of the light and darkness ratio, you know, and the curve and the sort of a fade. So, you know, you could put an object on the on the floor, and then you would simulate some sort of a light shadow with rays and all that stuff. So this is one idea. Okay, let's move on to diamond. Again, this one gives you like a square point, and again you can change the color in the outside and the inside, like I'm showing you here. So there you have it. You can move the center, change the radius, and also kind of change the curve like this. So the same options apply for this one as well. I'm going fast through these because they are essentially the same. Another more powerful one would be the 3-color. So the 3-color here, it gives you 3 selections, 3 points like a triangle to change colors in. So I can click on this one and choose purple, and I can choose on this one and put green, and then a third one and put something like blue. Okay, so there you have it. You have 3 distinct colors, and you can see this is like a triangle, so you can change the size again, you can change the origin point and the rotation, so you know you can create some nice effects. Again, as before, you can't do the profile here because it's quite difficult to figure out which one you want. So with the 3.1, there's no profile, there's just a simple and repeating pattern. So if you zoom it out, so you can change the size and you select a repeating pattern, then it's going to just repeat and give you some sort of a pattern with the colors you've chosen. So it's a very easy way to create some fancy sort of psychedelic colors or patterns. Okay, so moving on to the 4-color one. Again, the 4-color one is similar to the triangle one, but this also allows you to sort of alter the shape of the corners. So you can do a rectangle or a square, or you know, change the ratio around, move the origin again, change the colors, you know, and do all sorts of tricks now with 4 colors, as you can see here. So that is all, and I'm going to just skip bitmap for now because that's the juicy one I'm going to show you at the end. And fractal clouds basically fills your shape with a sort of a dynamically generated, I guess, fractal cloud thing. You can zoom it in and out and change the colors. Basically, honestly, the fractal plasma is similar, although a little more blurry. I have never used these. Maybe you can use them to create some sort of like a clouds pattern on some graphics. I don't know. You can think maybe of more creative ways to use this. But now let's go back to bitmap. So just for demonstrating, I'm going to go back to flat fill first and choose black on this. All right. So we are back to our default. So I want to discuss the bitmap fill because this is one of the more powerful ways to apply fills to objects. So I have this object here, and if I go to the fill tool and I change to the bitmap fill, you will see that my object is now filled with a default bitmap fill. So this seems quite arbitrary, but it's just Xara's way of telling you that you haven't actually selected a bitmap to fill your object with because it doesn't know which one you want. So if you go to the bitmap gallery on the side here, on the right side, you can see this bitmap that is added by default in all of the new Xara documents. So this is a bitmap here that is used as the default fill, but of course you can change this because you can fill it with your own objects. So for this purpose, I'm going to import a picture from my hard drive. So you can import a bitmap by just dragging it from your hard drive onto your document. Xara is asking me if I want to resize this image because it's quite large. I'm going to just say import the original one, and this is it. So this image has been imported as an object on my scene, on my document. I can delete it actually, and if I go to the bitmap gallery, it's still here. So all imported bitmaps are kept in this bitmap gallery for you to reuse. So Now my object here I have specified that I want to use a bitmap fill for it. So all I have to do now is either drag this image on top of my object, and you will notice the cursor changes to sort of a little square that shows it's about to fill this object with my bitmap. Okay, there you have it. Or if I click undo, the same way I can go to the bitmap, the fill tool, and my object is selected. Now I'm selecting my object and it says bitmap here, single tile, but then down here you see this drop down with the bitmap name. If I drop down, you see the default one in there. If I drop this down, my imported bitmap shows up next to it. Click on this and it's going to use it to fill my object. The same object, the same effect if you just dragged it from the bitmap gallery. This happens here. So now my object is filled with this bitmap. So by default, Xara will try to fill your object completely with the bitmap. So if I make this smaller and maybe introduce another object here like a star, let's just introduce this star in here. It's a bit deformed. Okay, so this is my star. So I want to fill this one with my bitmap from my bitmap gallery. So again, I go to the fill tool, select bitmap from the drop down, and then again you see the default bitmap, and selecting this will fill it with the same object. Now you see, of course, it's not the same shape, so it's not you can't see all of it, but Xara does try and fill the object to the size of the bitmap so that you don't have any white spaces. You can of course drag these handles to resize your bitmap inside of the object. So the same here, click on the object, using the fill tool, you see the resize handle. So I can drag the center to reposition my bitmap. I'm going to just add a dark outline to my object so that you can see what's happening. That's too much. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in. So that is the outline of my object, and this is the bitmap that fills my object. You can see that I can move my bitmap fill inside of my object. So in essence, what I've done here, I have not really filled my object. What I've done is I've created a clipping mask. So this is similar to maybe After Effects, where you're doing a clipping mask to fill an object with a bitmap. But in Xara, this is much more powerful. In my opinion, this is the most flexible fill tool I've seen, because you can pretty much do anything you like with this bitmap. You can hold down the shift key to deform it, stretch it. You can use the arrow keys to just resize or rotate it and reposition this bitmap inside of your object. And also another cool trick is you can actually, if you move this object, you notice that of course you see the white areas around it because the bitmap does end at some point. But you can actually select here from single tile, you can select repeating tile. And that means it's going to repeat your fill, all over the object. So no matter where I move it, my bitmap will just keep on repeating. So if I resize it and make it very, very small, of course the image I've chosen now is not seamless. But if you were trying to create a seamless pattern by using a fill like this, you could basically create a seamless pattern out of anything and use it as a bitmap fill on your object. And on my channel, I have a tutorial on how to create seamless patterns from any design or any object in Xara by using this method of filling the object with that pattern and just making it repeat. Another way is to change the repeating tile from repeating tile to repeat inverted, which means the object, the bitmap, is going to appear a bit symmetrical because the repeating ones are flipped. So you can see now it's a little more seamless now. Of course, you can still see it's fake and it doesn't really belong. But if you are in a bind and you have a bitmap that you really want to use to fill your object, and it's just not large enough, you can actually turn on this repeats inverted, and you will have a hard time noticing where your bitmap ends and where it starts. So you know, it would almost seem like the bitmap repeats seamlessly, and you're just filling the rest of it. You don't see any white edges anywhere. So this is how the bitmap works, and really the thing I said earlier about creating a clipping mask, basically in Xara, this is one sort of a rule of thumb. In Xara, whenever you're talking about a bitmap fill for an object, you are essentially talking about a clipping mask, and basically you are creating a clipping mask, and you can do whatever you want. So these, I've shown you two ways to fill an object with a bitmap, but actually there's more ways. So let's say that I zoom out a bit. So just to show you another way, you can just go to the bitmap gallery and drag this bitmap on the paper here, on the document. So this is the bitmap I just imported, right? It's not a shape or anything, it's just a bitmap. But watch this. If I want to fill, let's say, some text, right? So if I want to have some text, and I want to have this text filled with this bitmap inside of it. So I could select my text, go to the fill tool, select bitmap, and then select the bitmap from here, and there you have it. I have put the bitmap inside of my text. But actually, this is a clipping mask. So what I can do actually, and it's actually much faster, is to just have this bitmap on my document, put my text on top, resize my text to whatever size I want to have it, and then select both of them with the selection tool like this, and right click and say combine shapes, intersect. So there you have it, the same effect, because in Xara you are creating a clipping mask, as I said. So this has now turned into a clipping mask with my text and my bitmap inside of it. But the bitmap, the portions that you don't see, they are not actually lost. They are still in there. I just don't see them because the text is clipping it. So all I can say is, click on the fill tool. In that moment, you get these moving handles because your object is selected. I get these fill handles I can move. And look at this. I can reposition my bitmap inside of my text. So what I did was I did a combine operation between my text and my bitmap. So I ended up with my text filled with a bitmap in here. Now, okay, I have lost the ability to edit my text because my text has become a shape. But if I use a text like this is another text. So this would be the difference. If I have my text and I select fill bitmap and select my bitmap here, and I go back to the text tool, I retain the ability to edit my text with the bitmap inside of it. This is the only difference between having the text fill with the bitmap and having the text combined with the bitmap as a shape. So you won't always want to fill a text. I'm just showing you an example of the little differences. But in essence, this is one thing to keep in mind. Every time you're talking about filling something with a bitmap, you're actually working exclusively with clipping masks in Xara. So this is pretty much all there is. If you understand this, then all these possibilities open up, because you can dream of other ways to combine bitmaps and text and shapes and all that stuff. And the same, I'm going to show you just one more trick. Again, the same bitmap down here, I'm introducing it. So this is the same way you're actually you can crop or cut out objects from bitmaps. So I'm just going to do a quick job of this. I'm going to zoom in. This is my bitmap. So another trick, you can take the shape tool here and just use the shape tool and basically just go around drawing. I'm just going to really go crazy and fast on this. Just draw the ridge here, for example, right? So let's say I want to keep the portion with the mountains and I want to crop out the sky from this bitmap. So all I have to do is just create this shape, trace around it, and you can see, actually it should have been black here because as I said, Xara remembers your last fill, your last color. So this is my shape that I've just drawn on top of my bitmap. So again, select this shape, make sure it's a closed shape, right? So not just a line. Select the bitmap as well with holding down the shift key, and then right click, combine shapes and intersect. So there you have it, my bitmap. I've just cut out the sky out of it. But really what I've done is I have created a clipping mask, because if I move this now with the fill tool, I can see the sky is right there. So this is really the main thing when working with the fill tool. When you get to the bitmap part, that's why I wanted to leave this for last, because I wanted to really dig deeper into this one. This was it with the fill tool in Xara Designer Pro X. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and let me know if you find new creative ways to use the fill tool. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments and I will get back to you. And thank you for watching. See you next time.